all, I just want to say congratulations for the film. It's
Thank you.
absolutely wonderful. I have seen it a couple of times now, and it's just, yeah, absolutely brilliant. Um, I think the first thing I just wanted to ask was on one of your recent posts, you talked about how you had the idea for the film about 3 years ago now.
Mm.
What was it that like convinced you to take the plunge into making a short film?
Well, because it was such a change of direction, I'd been primarily making comedy for a long time. The
Yeah.
thing in the video you're referring to, I say I finally got out of my own way, and it was basically that inner critic in your head. It was that little voice that says, "Why would anyone care about this? You're only known for making comedy. If you're not making something with the intention of making somebody laugh, it's not going to be worth anyone's time, and no one's going to care, and you're going to be bad at it." And eventually, I just well, it wasn't like I was like just not doing anything, but I would always get stuck or lose confidence. And then it was just one afternoon where I eventually just sat and bashed out the 10 pages as a first draft. But because it had been living in my head for so long, that first draft was already pretty close to what you ended up seeing on screen. But yeah, essentially I just had to kind of get over my own like insecurity that it wouldn't be worth anyone's time and just go for it anyway, really.
Yeah, I think you mentioned obviously that you've primarily done comedy and people will know you from YouTube and stuff like that. I guess another thing is like how was that transition from comedy to drama? Did you find it like to be something completely new and fresh, or did you find yourself taking things that you learned from just doing comedy into something more dramatic?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I had done dramatic work. I'd acted in dramatic work and produced some stuff like that, and then even some of the music videos I'd made, had more sort of dramatic themes and things like that. So comedy is definitely like a well like worked out muscle that I can use. But actually, all of my inspirations and the things that I admire, I'm a big cinema guy. I'm not like a big comedy nerd, so I was never that influenced by other comedians or anything like that. It was definitely more from the movie world. So I wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with the stuff that I was really inspired by and see if I could make something that didn't require a punchline in order to work. But actually, with the second time around, the structure of it is pretty similar. I didn't think about this until I'd already made it, but the structure of the film is not that dissimilar to a comedy sketch with a setup, the bit in the middle, and then a callback joke. But in this case, the callback joke isn't made to make you laugh. It's meant to hit you in the soft, gooey bits.
Makes you cry. Yes.
Well, that was not like at the intention, but when people tell me it makes them cry or tear up or whatever, I'm like, feel like a psychopath going, good.
Well, you deserve it. You deserve it. Yeah, I guess where did the idea come from initially for the film?
I'm just a huge fan of genre films, and I really like high concepts that are used to explore something more human. I like those kind of movies. And around the pandemic, I had a very complicated relationship with Christopher Nolan's film Tenet, as I'm sure many did.
Yeah,
And
yes.
at first, when I first watched it, I wasn't like it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and I often say that I think expectations are the death of enjoyment, and my expectations were that he was going to be making another Inception, where it was using a big sci-fi idea, but secretly it was going to be a character story, and that is not what Tenet is, and so it took me a while, and because we had all the time in the pandemic, I had all that time to kind of re-establish my relationship with the film, and I love it, flaws and all. Like it honestly feels like the way that you accept a person that you love for all of their flaws. Like that's how I feel about Tenet. I know it isn't perfect, but I love it. And the deeper and deeper I looked into it, the more obsessed I got with it. It just sort of inspired. Well, there's a specific scene in the first scene that Robert Pattinson shares with John David Washington. There's all this kind of energy and like this hint that they know he or Robert Pattinson knows him, and like, it's all kind of you know quite obtuse and suppressed in terms of what they're doing. And I wondered if you could tell a story like that, but bring all of the emotion up to the surface. And then honestly, just bit by bit, it was then pondering, oh, I wonder if you told it with these characters, what would that make somebody assume? And then I'd go further and be like, well, why would somebody come back and do, and like, oh, okay. And so it would just sort of bit by bit, I started sort of delving into my own mind and my own feelings about the topics that are in the film and the themes that are in the film, and it just sort of piece by piece became what it is. And it certainly isn't what I thought it was going to be, because we know when I first thought about it, it initially came to me as like, oh, that would be a fun experience to give an audience, like that would be a nice twist, like a little gasp moment. And then the more and more that I was writing it and then into making it, that part of it became less and less what I was focused on, and it became way more about, because I'm so obsessed with the time travel-y kind of high concept stuff, and I like, like I just said, I spent ages looking into Tenet. I know that not everybody's like that, but you can use those concepts to make somebody feel something really relatable. And that's what I became way more interested in, was like emotionally, what is this doing?
Yeah.
And what experience is it going to give to an audience?
Yeah, I think you know, the twist is, or the kind of, if it's not quite a twist, the thing, the realization is still such a central point, but it doesn't feel like the be all and end all of it, and it's more the emotional journey that both of the characters are going through in that moment, which I
Yeah,
think
it
comes
doesn't
across really well.
feel, thank you, and it doesn't feel like the Sixth Sense twist.
Mm,
It's,
yeah.
and I think there are some people who, in the second time around, it's a 10-minute film, so I think you can't really, unless that is the point where you're trying to make, a big twist happen. I think some people will watch it and it will dawn on them in the first minute, and some people maybe it doesn't hit them till the last minute, and either one, that mystery that's at the center of it, hopefully that's not like the first thing that people are focusing on. Obviously I don't want to spoil it too much for anyone who hasn't seen it, because it's 10 minutes, and I want them to have as pure of an experience as they possibly can when they do watch it. But ultimately, hopefully that the dawning of what the mystery is only unlocking the emotion more.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I guess going back to, you were talking about your love for genre films,
Mhm.
and something that I loved so much about this film was that it starts off and you're kind of wondering where it sits within a certain genre. It could be like a horror, it could be a thriller. You're kind of trying to work out what the woman's motivations are for coming to this cafe. And it's quite spooky and very atmospheric. But then as the kind of layers start to peel back slowly, you realize actually that it's something more emotional and something a lot more tender. Was that always like your intention with the film, to kind of start off like that and almost kind of like lulling us in under false pretenses and then going, oh, actually, it's about this instead?
Yes, I mean you've absolutely just said what I wanted to do, and just said it back to me, which is so satisfying. But I was coming from a comedy place. A lot of what comedy is subversion of expectations. It's like you think you're here, but actually you're here, or whatever. And that same structure applied to this, because one of the first things that came to my mind when I was thinking about this story was just that slow creeping, that drift towards the cafe with the waitress closing up in the rain. And it wasn't until later, like when the was written, that I fully realized, oh, I need to shoot this like a horror. That the beginning is the beginning of Halloween. That shot is a trope of horror, where the reveal is usually it's the point of view of a killer. And actually, what I really loved about that, and what the theory was that I had, is that if you start in that place where you're not sure what genre you're in, and it feels potentially dangerous or threatening, and who is Caroline? Is she a vampire? What is this? Like, she's asking to be let in, like all that stuff will not only throw you off in terms of what's really going on, but the theory was that if you start there and then 10 minutes later it reveals itself to be, as you said, more tender, hopefully the catharsis of that from one to the other is stronger, because you didn't think that's where you were going to get to.
Yeah, completely agree. Um, Another thing as well, I found kind of saying is that there's a lot of unsaid, unspoken things between the two characters in the film. And I just wanted to ask, were you tempted to kind of over-explain things, or did you find yourself being like, no, I gotta be
Mhm.
like more of a show, don't tell kind of thing?
Yeah, it was a difficult balance to get, because obviously I'm trying to make it clear to the audience what is going on, but I also wanted to completely trust that the audience could put two and two together. Um, but it also had to be very truthful to how I thought a character would behave. So I really tried to think of it realistically, like the way that I wrote it and the intentions I had. If they aren't in, if they don't match up to how somebody feels when they watch it, that's completely fine. But I had to write it with the intention of like somebody is coming back in time to deliver a message or say something that they wish they'd said. And I wondered, like, well, if you actually could do that, how would you? My theory was that if you really were going to come back in time to see somebody that you loved, and they were gone now, you might have everything written out that you wish you could say, and then you would be faced with the situation, and your brain would just go blank. I was like, there's no way. Like when you were actually in it, I think you'd just be so overwhelmed that it would. I don't know what to say. So that became a real driving factor with how Caroline's character would behave. And then I had so many different versions of like, there's a big scene in the middle, which is basically the heart of the film, where more of the context is kind of revealed as to why she's here and what's happened. That there were so many versions of that speech, and some of them went into more detail and let her kind of go all over the place in terms of her emotions. But I just felt like I had to kind of pull back and pull back and pull back, which is actually where, the big last line that Caroline says to Hannah's character before she leaves the cafe, that basically became that's the bit. That's the thing, because I was so careful with I don't want this to be something where somebody's clearly coming to give a clear warning. Like, for example, an option that was coming into my head about why she was here was, well, something has to have happened to Hannah's character. So I don't want it to be a car crash or illness, especially not car crash, because then it's somebody coming back and going like, "Don't get in a car on November 13th." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't want that to be my story. So I was very, very careful to not make it like a warning film, but more about what anyone I think can relate to, which is, the idea of if you could have 5 more minutes with somebody that you've lost, what would you say to them? And so those last words that she says before she leaves became all I needed, and it was maybe the last addition to the script before we shot. Actually, was I think that because as you said, everything is so unspoken, everything is
Mm.
so kind of like held like in such a careful way to not freak out the character. So Caroline doesn't want to freak her out, but then I
Yeah.
was like, something has to kind of vomit out. Something has to just come out. And yeah, we just kind of got to that moment quite naturally. But yeah, it was very, very difficult to try and yeah, like bring it back and like let enough out and know where the context had to be. Like it was, yeah, especially in 10 minutes.
And it's such a perfect moment as well because that when she says the initial thing and then that pause is just the perfect amount of time to when she then is says, "Oh, that's what I would have said,"
Hmm.
which I think, oh my God, yeah, it's
Man,
honestly
yeah,
brilliant, yeah,
I
so good.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Um,
Yeah. And Hannah's face, man, like
yeah, oh my
Hannah's
gosh,
face. God, so
yeah.
lucky to have both of those actors. Like the story would have fallen on its face without them.
Well, funnily enough, I was going to kind of ask, how was it working with the both of them? I mean, Caroline, who it speaks for itself, her career, and then Hannah, who is kind of rising up at the minute and kind of
Hmm.
being in more things. How was it working with the both of them?
A dream, like utterly fantastic. And they both had such difficult jobs as well, because it wasn't like they could be in the scene with each other. And basically, the entire conflict of it is what they both want out of the scene. So Caroline's coming in, and all she wants is 5 minutes to be present with this person, and all Hannah wants to do is for this woman to leave so she can go home. And that conflict, it makes it difficult for them to kind of form any kind of rhythm with each other as actors, because they basically don't want the same thing from the scene, which also makes it very interesting to watch. Caroline had so many questions, went down so many rabbit holes about all of it, things I'd never even considered. I was like, wow, I can't believe somebody is coming to this after it's lived with me for so long, and they're asking me things I've never thought about before. And Hannah did such an amazing job at going, I don't want to hear any of it. I'm not supposed to know. I don't want to know. Keep me out of
I love
that.
that.
I'm supposed to just be in the moment reacting to this weird person. And that made it amazing as well that, like, short film, not that much time, but I often get to do two or three, four takes. And it was very interesting to watch Caroline shift in how she would behave and maybe be calmer or more erratic in each take, and how Hannah would then respond to that. And that made the edit very interesting as well because I got to really kind of massage the thing into place in terms of where I wanted those moments to be. But yeah, honestly, both of them are unbelievable. And I think, if you don't believe, with all of my kind of influences from the films I love and the way I was approaching it with like, oh, you might think it's a horror and all that stuff, it wouldn't have mattered if you didn't believe that Hannah went from a place of feeling very borderline terrified of this person to feeling very moved and actually comforting this person. If you didn't believe that journey, none of what I was doing would have mattered.
Yeah. Another thing as well, with the two of them, I think that at the moment, currently, queer stories are queer visibility in art is just such an important thing. And I guess I wanted to know, like, where you kind of filtered in them being two queer women into the story, if
Mhm.
that was something from the beginning, or if that was something you realized as you were kind of working through the idea.
A few people have asked me about this, and the honest answer is it was always two women. And
Yeah.
I don't really have a real explanation as to why. It just kind of instinctively was. And I can look back logically now and go, well, if Caroline's character was a man, I think that horror feeling that you have at the beginning maybe wouldn't have gone away if an older
Mm,
man was forcing himself inside a cafe and seemed a bit obsessed with this young woman. I don't think the tenderness that you feel, I don't think you would have ever felt safe and really woken up to what the actual story was about if that was
yeah.
different. Um, Also, quite honestly, as well, just from a logistics, like storytelling point of view, because this is a mystery and it's an older woman and a younger woman, and there is when it hints at time or ghosts or whatever it is that you interpret it to be, maybe there's some people who might think, is she her older self? Like there's like
Of
all these
course.
options in there about what this could be that is I found very exciting as like an opportunity to kind of mess with an audience's expectations of what it was. But also I just like the fact that it's a story about two queer women and it's not a story about that they just
Yeah.
are, and
Yeah.
they just happen in the same way that I wanted both of them to do an accent closer to mine, because I was like, I want to hear more East Midlandsy accents in this kind of genre. Like usually if you have somebody from where I'm from in a story, it's usually about how grim it is to live in the East Midlands. And the same with queer women and especially older queer women and well, actually just queer people in general. If they're in stories, it's usually about how tough it is to be queer. And I'd rather just be like, well, they can be in these stories that we love as well. Like I just, why can't we have a Back to the Future or something like that where the character just happens to be gay instead of like it being about the fact that they're gay. So yeah, I didn't really ever second guess it. It was just what it always was.
Amazing. Awesome. So kind of moving on, how has it been releasing the film? I mean, obviously it's something that stays with you and you personally and the crew and everything for such a long time, and then now it's kind of out in the world and it's showing at festivals and it's on Channel 4, and which is really cool. So like kind of what how does that feel?
Yeah, you're right. It is it's definitely been like a little secret for a long time. And it's definitely, when it's been showing at festivals, the reception's been lovely and all of that has been a very nice experience, especially just like personally seeing it in a cinema a few times now is always like surreal because I for the first time ever I've made something where when I'm watching it in the cinema I do feel like wow, it's different in here. Like this is I can, I've always known that I like going to the cinema and the cinema is a better place to experience movies, but never have I felt that on such a personal level than when I'm watching my own this film and being like, wow, the room and the atmosphere is changing the film. And that's very interesting. But now that it's on Channel 4 and more people are being able to see it and then, talking about it, there's reviews on Letterboxd and everything. And it is very overwhelming in a very positive way. People have been very, very lovely. But it is still strange to think, like, I was just scrolling on the Channel 4 app just to see it and just being like, this was one day just in my head and now it's there. crazy. Like it's just a crazy, crazy experience that I don't think I can just describe it. I can't really describe how it truly feels. I can just describe like what's going on. But yeah, it's great, man. I'm just so pleased that people are seeing it and getting something from it.
Amazing. Yeah. One kind of finalish thing. The film is called The Second Time Around, and I watched the film for the second time. And it was like a completely different experience, kind of going in and knowing. You,
I'm
you
so
you look like
pleased
you're
you said that.
celebrating. Yeah. So it's kind of or the way I kind of saw it is noticing those little details, like the woman pronouncing Ellie's name the way that it's meant to be pronounced, and her looking around the cafe and kind of being so like entranced by all of those little things. What is that something that you were really hoping that audiences would kind of take away from it?
As you can probably tell from my celebration, it absolutely was. The film is called The Second Time Around for a multitude of reasons, but one of them is because I am a massive rewatcher of films. And actually, if a film is not as good or doesn't give me something new the second time that I watch it, I always feel a bit like, oh yeah, you would. This was designed for like a roller coaster experience. Like you just want me to go through this one time, and then like the second time I watch it, all of those moments of tension or whatever it might be are kind of gone now. Um, and I honestly was thinking about the movie Arrival and how different that movie feels the second time you watch it because it really uses film language to lie to you. And the first time you watch it, you assume certain things based on your knowledge of the grammar of cinema. And then the second time you watch it, you know you've learned this new language, which is also so clever because the film is about language and you watch it differently. And I wanted to do that with this, that the first time something is off, something's scary, something's not quite right, and Caroline seems wacko. And the second time, hopefully, you see more love and you feel more relaxed and you can pick up more on what's really going on rather than wondering what's around the corner. Um, and also, like, you know, I'm like I said, I'm obsessed with all this kind of stuff. So packing it full of these little paradoxes and, you know, setups and payoffs that there's so many of them throughout. There's like a really obvious one which finishes the film, but there's a few little details that if you want to look for that stuff, it is there. And I've tried my best to make sure that they all match rather than there being any sort of plot holes. But yeah, man, like I'm so pleased that you said that because yeah, I genuinely wanted it to be something that could be rewatched and enjoyed differently the second time around.
Very good, very good. And one of those details, is beef milk, which I just
Mhm.
wanted to like, I mean, genius, absolutely incredible, because it's true, isn't it? Oat milk, coconut milk, whatever milk, almond milk, but we just say no, we just say milk. So why
Yeah,
don't we
normal
say
milk,
beef milk
or some people would say cow's milk,
or cow's
but
milk? Yeah, I
yeah,
guess.
but I think there's something about beef milk which sort of really lets you in on this is kind of gross.
Yeah,
And I think it's kind of going back to the reason, I mean, there's so many like little behind the scenesy things that I could let you in on, and there's a couple coming to mind now. Firstly, like you mentioned that, you know, Caroline, when she comes in, says Ellie straight away, and her name is spelled Elle, which would obviously usually be pronounced L. And the reason I chose that name is because it's a palindrome. And I was like, I want a name that's palindromic. But then by doing that, I was like, well, it could be pronounced differently. And then, so like all of these like time travel things that are I'm obsessed with actually ended up informing really interesting scenes that could happen because it gave me an opportunity for her to know her and it not just be that she just said a name. It was actually she got the name right, which usually people don't do. And with beef milk, it was just I was writing a, you know, in my show Jack and Dean of All Trades, Jack and Dean's like not boss, but the person they go to get jobs from is called Marv, and she's played by Jessica Hines, and she's like a quirky, weird woman. And so I've realized I quite like writing like quirky women. I guess this is just something I return to. And I was like, okay, so I'm picturing that kind of thing, and it's quite early days. I don't know who it is, and I just said, well, what would she call normal milk? And I was like, beef milk just came out. I think I don't think I coined it. I think I probably heard it somewhere or somebody said it,
yeah.
and it just sort of stuck with me. But then that became an opportunity to go, well, that's a an in joke And then that could become this sort of bootstrap kind of thing of where did it start? And the reason as well why I really wanted to include, again, the reason why all these time travel things kind of, I think, inform something very human. I think that that is what happens in relationships. You come up with in jokes with each other and you don't know whose it was and where it started, and you kind of form like into each other a little bit, and you start using your own little languages with each other. And so I thought that actually making it a literal bootstrap paradox would only strengthen the idea that the effect that these two women have had on each other across time and space.
Well, I mean, incredible. I guess one final question, and it might be a bit existential, but what's next? What are we? Is there
The
anything in the
dreaded one,
pipeline? The
the dreaded
dreaded
question.
question, yeah, because then you like question all your life choices and, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that always happens, and it's completely understandable. But like you finally put out the thing you've been working on, and everyone goes, "Cool, that was nice. What's next then?" It's just, well, I've just
Yeah.
finished. It's not even finished. So yeah, I mean, this has still got a little way to go. We've got a few more festivals that we're still due to do. We are going for the BAFTA and the Oscar because why not? We're just going to see
Why
what
not?
happens. Why not? Let's just see. I doubt it's possible, but we're qualified for it, so why not take a swing? And then hopefully, I mean, there's many reasons why I made this, but one of them was because I wanted to try and blow the doors off the industry a little bit and sort of try and find a route to getting a feature film made, and that's hopefully what I'll be doing next.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jack. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
Thank you,
just to hear you
Alex.
talk about the film is, yeah, amazing. So
Thank you for the
thank you
great
so
questions.
much.